Tennessee Titans practice at Nissan Stadium recapped on Saturday, and Cam Ward was on fire. The connection to Calvin Ridley was on full display, and they were making highlight reel play after highlight reel play. We're going to go through it. We got video of every play. Shout out to the Mettenberger on Twitter for posting all these clips. We're going to show them on the podcast so you can follow along as we talk about the plays. And we have Zach Lyons joining us. He was at the practice at Nissan Stadium to share with us what he saw and heard on the day. Plus, we're going to talk about some other stuff that happened at camp. Femi Oladejo, Jeffery Simmons. We got a ton to talk about. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it.
The mental part of this can be so much for a young quarterback. Cam Ward was in a walkthrough yesterday, made a check at the line of something they had just gone over the day before. Some of the coaches I've spoke to here were just like, wow, like that is not the kind of thing you see for a rookie. It's a long way to go. There's a lot that he needs to put on the field, but the early returns are overly positive for Tennessee. And you know, you ask the coach for his reaction, you want to know what they think. You get phrases like this: this guy is the truth.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast, presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. Justin, how about that practice? Cam Ward's best day of camp so far. A really exciting day out there at Nissan Stadium on Saturday. We got Zach Lyons coming up to talk about it. How's it going?
Doing well. Saturday's practice was electric. What a performance by Cam Ward, as you said. Under difficult circumstances, you know, they're working silent counts, they're working third and long. This isn't third and short, right? This is third and long, and he consistently moved the chains. Calvin Ridley, Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett, Chig. He was just finding his weapons all over the field. And I'll quickly add, we've got the footage, as you said, of every big-time throw we're going to play as we go through them. The shout-out that you gave the Mettenberger, the Twitter account, who captured a lot of this footage, he was in attendance at practice, I would go as far as to say was the best thing anyone with the last name Mettenberger has ever done in Nashville.
I was going to say he was the MVP of the day. He takes it over Cam Ward. Because of him, we got to see everything Cam Ward did instead of just reading about it from people who were at practice. So big shout out to the Mettenberger for not following him on Twitter. Highly recommend it. He's a great follow, Titans fan, funny, and also very informative with these. And he posted his own practice takeaways that on Twitter because he was at camp too. So go find his Twitter account if you're not on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, and follow him, because shout out to him for providing us with all of this footage. Justin, I want to get into this with Zach Lyons right off the bat, talk about what he saw at practice. A real quick reminder, the best way to help our show, if you are a fan and a follower of us, is to click and watch on every video all the way through. If you don't have time or it's a topic that's not interesting to you, click on it anyway, play it in the background with no sound. It really helps us out. Remember to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. What was your favorite Cam Ward moment from Saturday's practice? Mine was the pass to Tyler Lockett that we're going to get into with Zach in a second. But another reminder also, everyone out there, if you haven't heard because you're under a rock and you don't listen to our show very often, Sinkers Beverages 40th birthday jamboree coming up Saturday, August 9th. Get your tickets in the podcast description. You don't want to miss this event with live music, tons of free giveaways. So check out the link in the description. Justin, enough introing. Should we get to Zach Lyons and talk about Cam Ward's incredible day?
Yeah, this was a great conversation with Zach, friend of the pod, official radio host show on 104.5 The Zone. He was at practice in person there with his big old shiny media credential. Zach had all the action, and he did a great job running us through everything. So yeah, let's bring Zach on.
All right, then, let's get to it. We now welcome onto the show Zach Lyons, host of Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons on 104.5 The Zone weekdays. Zach, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming back on the podcast. How's it going today?
It's going good. Yesterday was the Saturday, I guess I should say, because I don't know when this is actually going to go live. Saturday was the in-stadium practice at 11 a.m. It was a scorcher. Got a few cloud coverage, but it was a good practice overall.
Yeah, it sounded like everyone out there said it was Cam Ward's best day of training camp so far, and we wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you saw on the field, of course, with the connection that seems to be very much blossoming with Calvin Ridley and really all the receivers. But I also wanted to ask you, before we get into that, what was the atmosphere like? Because you tweeted that Cam Ward is being treated like a rock star around Nissan Stadium. We saw him holding babies and signing autographs. What was it like seeing Cam Ward interact with the fans and just the overall atmosphere inside the stadium for this practice?
I would say for one of the hotter days that we've had today, I think it's supposed to be the hottest day. So it was the lead into that. I'm very surprised by how many people still showed up. It was, I would say, I guess like, I don't know, 5,000 people, 6,000 people, maybe close to 10. That doesn't sound a lot when you're talking about a 60,000, 70,000 person stadium, but that's a lot for a Saturday at 11 a.m. And we went to what, like 1:30 or 2 o'clock yesterday. So props to all those people. And there were people all around the stadium too. So when I talk about like Cam Ward being a rock star is very, for the old people, it's a lot like the Beatles. It's Beatlemania. For the younger people, it's BTS, right? Like, I almost typed BTK, by the way, and that's a totally different thing. BTK is a serial killer, so would not have been the right thing.
Totally
different. The whole instance of it was wild. I've been to a few of those from the stands perspective, like not on the field, and the amount of people that would rush to the field. And then when he starts in one area, everybody's screaming, then he stops, and then he signs all this, he gets the babies, he kisses them. And then then you hear all these screams again, and like every time he moved, there were just screams and like Cam, 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 and they were chanting Cam's name. Wow. Someone said that they smell him in his dreams from the stands. I heard that one. But like he went around after he did a little bit of media availability, he stayed and went around the entire stadium. And it was just like, it's kind of like people doing the wave, right? You just hear the screams every so often going around the stadium. It was why. And the shrieks, it's like, it's not even just like, hey, Cam, it's like fangirls fainting kind of screams. It's the most rock star I've seen a Titans football player since probably, I would say, like Steve McNair, I guess. Like it is rock star status.
I saw the attendance build that just because you mentioned it at 7,500. I don't remember. I think Jim Wyatt mentioned 7,500. I think in the observations piece. It's tough to get an exact head count on that, but clearly a pretty good turnout. I know how hot it gets in Nashville in late July, so pretty good turnout in my opinion.
Oh yeah, 7,500 seems spot on. I was like 510. You know, that's right in the middle. So there you go. Maybe Jim just played it safe.
Yeah,
maybe that's what Jim was doing.
Guesstimating. I thought, there was some indications that Cam Ward was feeling good and ready to have a great day of practice just from the warm-up clips that were tweeted out. We had one of him throwing it behind the back, perfect spiral downfield to Calvin Ridley. Looked like about 15 to 20 yards. There was another one that Ben Arthur tweeted of him doing like the handoff warm-up drill where he fakes the handoff and then rolls out and throws it left-handed. So he was feeling himself, I think, a little bit early on. But then I believe it was the first pass of 7-on-7. He goes deep to Calvin Ridley, and the ball's a little underthrown, maybe a little bit late, but Ridley makes the catch and looks like he would have ran for an end zone. And, a big shout out as we get into this, because we're going to put up all the plays as we go. Every play we talk about, I got video of, and we're going to put it up. Shout out to the Mettenberger, who I don't know what rules he was or wasn't breaking at Nissan Stadium, filming like every rep of 7-on-7 and team period, but he got all the videos out so the Titans fans could see basically every play. But it felt like that first one, the deep ball in the first rep of 7-on-7, maybe not quite warmed up completely because, again, the ball was a little underthrown, but then it felt like he really started to hit his stride. And I would say outside of the interception, it was an unbelievable day of highlight reel throws for Cam Ward. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. Some of those would have been sacks in live action. The one where it is Calvin Ridley is that's the touchdown, and then he jumps up and does the celebration that he stole from Bryce Oliver.
Yeah, who stole it from Cristiano Ronaldo.
Ronaldo,
right.
Thank you very much.
But that would have been definitely a sack. But that's what I will say this, and I pointed this out in my notes, is like, yeah, it would have been a sack, but that was a broken play. And you can see Cam Ward signaling to Calvin Ridley to change his route, and it still completed it. So even if it was a sack, it was a sack by half a second, but it still shows good positive momentum between him and Calvin Ridley that we didn't see last year. Calvin Ridley is now the worst kept secret in the fantasy community, I think. And now, because everybody's like, oh, nobody's talking about Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley's an ADP, blah, blah. By the time that fantasy drafts start rolling around, Calvin Ridley's probably going like in the 4th round, if even that, because the connection there is crazy. You talk about the diving catch too, which I think is the catch that you're referencing on the first play. Was that the first play?
No,
that
the first one was
play,
the underthrown deep ball.
But you're right.
Okay.
There was a nice diving catch where Ward throws it like really early, total anticipatory timing throw. And it's a little wide, but Ridley makes the diving catch.
So to be clear, yes, it is 7-on-7, but that was 3rd down offense. So the deep to Ridley, the very first play, 3rd down offense. Then to Wiley. Then there was a great catch to Chig. Then to Van Jefferson. He started off really hot. Then there was to Bryce Oliver over Darrell Baker Jr., but that was all 3rd downs and long. So it's not 3rd and short, it's 3rd and longs. And we had the benefit of having Coach Mack and Taylor Zarzer over the intercoms. So not only did we get...
Is that how you say it? We were discussing this on the last pod. I was like, Zarzauer? I don't know. I don't know.
It's not Zarzauer. I can tell you that. It's Zarzer, I think.
Thank you.
But we had the benefit of them over the intercom. And so even when like the play was completed, it wasn't just like your standard play. You heard Coach Mack breaking down what he would break down on Titans radio. So like not only did we get the benefit of what down and distance they were practicing for. In fact, one of the Ridley ones was that he had to get to, they went around the 20 and had to get to like the 39 or 48, or it was something crazy like that. It was crazy long, and he completed it. So it was easily a 20-yard explosive, whatever it was. But we also get to hear the benefit of like, that is a timing, like Coach Mack telling us that is a timing route. They're working on timing throws. This was a post dig and, a drag route, drag boot to DK at one point. Like we get to hear that benefit. So it pointed out to me, yes, this is Cam Ward's best day. But the last 2 days of training camp that were open to everybody, it was like screens and it was very vanilla. This was the most exciting practice anyway. And this is where you really got to see, I think in the first 2 days of training camp, you got to see a lot of the quick decision-making and aggressiveness and tight window throws. Today or yesterday, Saturday, you got to see the explosives. You got to see the calm, the poise. You got to see a different element of Cam Ward. And it's hard to explain, but it kind of goes to that rock star status. You got to do. Like, this is a dude. And I think that's the most important thing.
We played a clip to intro the show of Ian Rappaport saying the coaches told him this guy is the truth. And I think Brian Callahan talked about before practice how this whole thing, being in Nissan Stadium, elevates sort of the level of play and level of competition and just the excitement and the hype, and like the players can feel it being in the actual stadium. And I think, Cam Ward stepped up to that moment as well, which has been the story of his life. Big moment. He never shies away from that pressure and handling it really well. And there was another play we didn't mention that sort of quintessential Cam Ward, what makes him special, aside from the rolling out one where Simmons maybe would have sacked him, maybe wouldn't have. Who knows? Cam Ward.
What is sacked him, Graver? We're getting that debate out of the way earlier. That's a dead play on that one. But
you never know. Like Cam Ward was.
It's a dead play.
He was pretty good at
the ability to
slipping through tackles. Like maybe Simmons slides down
listen,
him.
And to be fair, maybe he would have called a different signal to Calvin Ridley to get the ball out quicker. But that particular play is a sack play. 10 times out of 10.
Right,
unless you're playing against the Titans defense and it's your Drake May, that is a sack.
Well, that's the thing. It was the Titans defense. But anyway, so maybe, who knows?
But he was a Drake May.
We'll call it 9.9 times out of 10. Like, who knows? But there was the other one where he stepped up the sort of the middle of the pocket to hit Van Jefferson on a late play to convert the third down. That was like, that's what makes Cam Ward special, is that when everything is locked up defensively in that first like moment of the play and the top of your drop and there's not there, Cam Ward's able to bring you to that second moment and buy extra time and find guys like Van Jefferson. So we haven't seen much of that at all, really, the first 2 days of camp. And we got to see him sort of improvising and extending plays and making big things happen, which you just love to see, because that's the one skill that, if it does translate from college, could put him in a special class of quarterback if it doesn't lead to mistakes,
I look at it like this. We've had a lot of discussions on Cover 2. Me and Blaine have. We've had this with Stoney. We've had it in the chat. I even had it with Terry on Saturday before we practiced. And we all kind of came to the same conclusion. And really, Sharp Football probably put this thought in our head more than anybody else. But he said the Titans in 2023 to 2024 in their transition went from a run-first defensive team to a 11 personnel Cincinnati Bengals team without having Joe Burrow and all those pieces. But they just weren't ready. I likened it to like this. Will Levis is a Pinto. And the difference between 2023 Will Levis and 2024 Will Levis is actually very negligible. First off, turnover luck was a big part of why he looked so good 2023, and I think Derrick Henry was the other part. But Mike Vrabel and Tim Kelly knew that they had a Pinto, so they only took that Pinto around the neighborhood, right? They didn't take it on the highway. They didn't take it anywhere. They just wanted to charge up the battery a little bit, so they just took it around the neighborhood. Brian Callahan took a Pinto and went off-roading with it. Like that's not what you use a Pinto for. And I think what we've seen in this transition in the roster is that they have gotten players that can do what Cam Ward needs them to do, but also what Brian Callahan needs them to do. Because I think what you saw last year when they put in Mason Rudolph was so scared of getting sacked, he got the ball out too quick and didn't let plays develop to their fullest. While the other end of the spectrum was Will Levis, who never got the ball out quick. And I think Cam Ward will likely never be the quickest time to throw or the quickest in that metric, but I think he'll be dead center. And for a timing-based offense, I think that's what you want. You want someone that arrives on time, not early or late. And all that to say, that's what you have seen from Cam Ward, at least from my eyes, at the practices that have been there, is that he's quick, he's decisive, but that doesn't mean he's like releasing it fast. It just means that he knows what he's seeing and he's throwing guys open. He threw, who was it open? It was a 3rd and 12 to Ridley, and he threw to Ridley. That was the diving catch, actually.
Right.
He threw to Ridley before Ridley even got out of his break. And maybe it's a little early, but that was an anticipatory throw. And in college, you don't see anticipatory throws on the regular, and that's a big thing for him is to get that down. What I think is ultimately going to save this season, not like a playoff team or anything, but it could happen, is that Brian Callahan has his guy. And I think at the end of the day, that's so important. This isn't an Eberflus situation, or this isn't a GM forcing anybody on him. Everybody agrees this is the guy from the ownership on down. It's not like Vince Young, right? This is the guy. This is the guy you take. This is the guy you never pass up on. And we've always said that if you feel like you have the guy, it doesn't matter unless someone is trading you 5 first-round picks, you don't move off of it. This is that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Zach, I also, while on the topic, I want to talk about what was probably the throw of the day, maybe the only one we haven't talked about much, was the Tyler Lockett one. You know, he kind of threads the needle, looks like right over the top of the linebacker who came so close to getting fingertips on it, and right in between a window where there were 2 or 3 other defenders kind of closing in on it. I think that was a corner that was crashing in on it, but again, just got there half a tick late. Like that to me was probably the throw of the afternoon.
Easily throw of the afternoon that's the one from the muddy pocket that I believe Graver was talking about earlier. And I think here's what I would tell. This is how I would look at that particular play. Tyler Boyd couldn't do that play.
Right.
And that's not a knock on Tyler Boyd necessarily, but when you're talking about things that this offense wants to be, things this offense couldn't do last year, we're talking about a guy exiting the slot, finding space between 5 defenders, getting the ball, making a guy's couple of miss, and then a quarterback that can layer that throw into 5 defenders from a muddy pocket. That's what we've been missing. Like Tyler Lockett may still be a 600 or 700 yard wide receiver, but as long as he gets those in big moments that can like that's all that matters. You don't need 5,000, 1,000 yard wide receivers, right? Like you just need one of those guys, maybe a 900 guy then a 700 guy, and then maybe a 700 tight end, and you got a pretty dang good year of passing out of your pass catchers.
Yeah, and that play was really special to me because it showed off the timing and the trust between him and Lockett. We talk a lot about the connection he's developing with Calvin Ridley, and rightfully so. He's going to be the wide receiver one. But that one to Lockett, it also felt like there was some anticipation there. And you mentioned the muddy pocket and his ability to stand in there and have the vision to see what's developing down the field, the accuracy of the throw to layer it right over the fingertips of Cody Barton into Tyler Lockett with, like you said, Melo, defenders converging, and Lockett bounces off a tackle and takes it into the end zone. I mean, this is Tyler Lockett we're talking about. He didn't just dive down as soon as he caught the ball. Is this a practice thing? Or is this a Cam Ward thing?
That's definitely probably
not
practice.
A touchdown in a game.
Or maybe it's like Tyler Lockett's like, wow, I got to make extra plays for my quarterback because I love him so much, so I'm not going to dive down. I'm going to get in the end zone. Is that potentially?
I'll say this. It was pretty wide open, though. Like, he may have only gotten like 1 or 2 yards after the catch before he goes down. But you never know. He may have just gone right on through. But it was a wide open area. I mean, like, the closest defender was maybe 3 yards to him, it felt like, from the ground. And that was off silent count. So, like, they're preparing for silent count work going up against Denver. So that was silent count work 11 on 11s. Crowd was getting hype as soon as they were breaking the huddle. So he would have to go through his pre and post snap motions with a little bit of noise. Of course, you're not going to be able to simulate whatever Denver's going to do with 7,500 people. Right. But that's what they were working on. Regardless of what was going on, it was silent count work constantly. So that one was a kind of, I didn't put that in my notes, but that kind of adds an extra layer to how great that play actually ended up being.
And then on the connection with Ridley, there was, a couple things, like it wasn't perfect. There was a throw early during warmups that, a sideline, they're working on that sideline throw timing, and the ball was a little out of bounds. It's like, okay, you're still developing that we mentioned the first throw 7-on-7 was a little behind him. The diving catch was a little far outside, but the fact that, it's day 3 of camp with one walkthrough practice in the middle of those 3 practices, and the timing is good enough to produce a number of highlight reel plays, and they're still tweaking it a little bit. Teron Davenport actually reported that the two of them spent the special teams period just going over route details, specific ways to come out of breaks and things like that. So that connection is continuing to develop. It's great to see where it is on day 3 of practices, and just imagine where it's going to be when September gets here. But Zach, I want to move us on a little bit and talk about, we mentioned it, but we didn't really mention the James Williams interception. What happened on this play?
Ultimately, it's a bad decision. I mean, there were it was all those defenders that were around Tyler Lockett deep down the field, and even in the Calvin Ridley throw. I mean, each of those throws, the diving throw had like 3 or more defenders around them. The difference is that Van Jefferson had 4 or 5 around him that were a lot closer, and James Williams read the eyes. And I do think Van Jefferson stopped short of the pick, but we're talking that if he even keeps on going, he maybe it turns into a pass breakup, but it's likely still an interception. So I do think it was a bad decision, but it's one of those decisions where that happens. And I know that Cody Barton has had 3 interceptions, almost 4. That happens, but that also happens in the middle of the field. You got to take those risks in the middle of the field. There's a lot of times where he attacked the middle of the field with Van Jefferson, Chigakonkwo, Josh Wiley, a couple different guys, and they all made plays in the middle. It's just that one happened to be the lone interception of the day. But it's 2 things. It's a bad decision by Cam, but you want to see an aggressive decision in the middle of the field. And it's a really good play by James Williams, and a guy that is going to be your linebacker too, unless barring injury. Okay. That's your guy that's going to be next to Cody Barton, no doubt. So
no doubt.
No doubt in my mind right now. That's just how it's been. And again, maybe preseason game, he craps the bed. Maybe against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, something happens in these joint practices. But I would say this. When people are telling you that a player is definitely going to make the team or is a lock or is doing this right now, That's because that has been the trend through the first 3 practices that we have been able to see. And the trend right now is that James Williams is starting next to Cody Barton. And the way that Coach Mack has talked about the practices that he's been to, though even the ones that the media aren't allowed to, James Williams is a constant vocal communicator in the center of that defense, along with Cody Barton. So there's going to be a lot less finger pointing, a lot less shoulder shrugging. If a play goes down, they're going to know whose fault it was.
And James Williams actually talked about the competitiveness between him and Cam Ward after practice. I'm going to play the sound of that answer because I thought it was a really good one.
He been getting me on shots like that in OTAs and beginning of training mini camp. So I told him, I'm going to get you. I know I'm going to get you. And I got him today, and he was just like, good thing, good stuff.
So that was James Williams. Great answer there. Justin, did you have something else for Zach here?
Yeah, Zach, before we let you go, I think obviously Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley, James Williams, who we just talked about, had the interception. Who else stood out to you, you think, outside maybe the 3 obvious names?
Chimere DK definitely took advantage of a lot of opportunity yesterday. He was making plays with Cam Ward. He was making plays with Brandon Allen. They were using him in all kinds of different ways on the outside and inside, end arounds, jet sweeps, all throughout the week. They look for ways to get him involved. Tyjae Spears, I think that if you polled everybody that was really paying attention to practice at media, the ball knowers, I guess I'll call them, Tyjae Spears had the best week out of anybody on either side of the ball.
Oh, wow.
And it really, guys, I know we say this about a lot of Titans players. If only he could stay healthy, like wrap him in bubble wrap. But that is the guy that has looked the fastest, the quickest, the most explosive. As soon as he sees the hole, he's downfield. Like it has been exceptional. I have not watched a lot of the offensive line yet. I'm going to try and get around and do that this week because I haven't watched any Dan Moore or anything. Pads start up on Tuesday, though.
I know. I mean, up until now, though.
Yeah. But I'll say this. J.C. Latham yesterday took Draymond Jones for a ride. And he took him all the way back behind Cam Ward and put him in the dirt. And Cam Ward ended up getting I think a play to Van Jefferson on that. But
it was Jefferson or Ridley, but we have it playing if anyone's watching this on YouTube.
But that one is awesome. Like that's what you want to see. I will also say this, kind of Van Jefferson, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but outside of that, then that one route, Van Jefferson was great for everybody. Doesn't matter who he's playing with, but he was running with the Cam Ward a lot. Ridley, Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett did a lot of work with Cam Ward. Hint.
Right.
And I would say that with Brandon Allen, who is the backup, Alec Iammanor, Bryce Oliver, and Chimere DK did a lot of work with the main backup, Brandon Allen. Hint. If you were to go listen to Football and Other F Words a few weeks ago, we said that those 3 wide receivers I just mentioned were locks. They're locks. I would say that if you were looking for someone else, Chig, that connection's really good. I think that is going to be something to watch. Too. Yes, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. had a pretty good week. There's one more person who was. Oh, it's not a good week kind of deal, but it is a good week, a good sign for Brian Callahan. Andrew Rupsich yesterday in the third down stuff. Third down, 11 on 11s. Rupsich had a terrible snap from center. It hit his legs. It was a fumble. Defense picked it up. He immediately got moved right back to right guard. Never saw center again. Brendan James went in for him at center. So I do think that was a good sign for Brian Callahan in this whole offseason of change, that normally we'd see guys kind of keep getting run there. Brian Callahan was low. No, not today. So a little something good from Brian Callahan.
Nice. Last thing I'll ask you, Zach, just because people are wondering, I'm wondering, like Gunnar Helm, is this sort of like he's going to need a year of seasoning before he really has a real role on this team? Is this a slow start to training camp? Because it feels like nobody's really talking about Gunnar Helm. And I do think Chigakonkwo is tight end 1 for sure for the 2025 season. But what kind of role do you think Gunnar Helm has right now on this team?
Yeah, at the beginning of it, because I had fallen so it was like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times, won't be fooled again. That was kind of how I felt about Chig going into this season. And I was kind of like, okay, I think Gunnar Helm sooner rather than later, and it has a good shot to be week 1 tight end, because I was just I was so done with Chig. And that was a bad move on my part, to be honest with you. Chig is ripped. I don't know if it's from swinging that Japanese katana around or whatever, but he is jacked. Like, everybody had talked about how noticeably thicker he is, and obviously the work that he is putting in with Cam Ward is paying off, because you see the connection. Everybody's like, well, if Xavier Restrepo doesn't make the team, who's his safety valve? I don't know, like 7 other better wide receivers and pass catchers? I don't know. Chig is that safety valve on that first team. Like, that first unit, he is the safety valve. Gunnar Helm, it was really odd, because Gunnar Helm wasn't running this way throughout the week, but yesterday he was with Tim Boyle more than anybody else. Josh Wiley isn't making this team. I think that was more of like, let's see what we can get out of Josh Wiley. I would be very surprised if they're keeping 4 tight ends. I think Gunnar Helm is your tight end 2 with the potential to be tight end 1 and be a safety valve. David Martin Robinson is the other guy making this team. Thomas Odukoya, was it Dabney? Something Dabney?
Yeah,
he's on this team as well. Yeah, he ain't making this team either. The Wiley's the guy on the bubble. Whether he makes it or not, I don't know. But Gunnar Helm, throughout training camp, was making plays. He was finding the soft spot in the zone. It just wasn't like, it's nothing wow through those first 2 days of training camp. So you're probably not going to get a lot. And yesterday, I can't recall. I necessarily wasn't watching the tight ends. But I don't recall any big plays from any of those guys. But I do think Gunnar Helm, he's going to make the team. I think he's your tight end 2. But I think I was definitely way too down on Chig, because he's a guy that if I was in a fantasy league, if this was an episode of The Flex, I'd be telling people 14th, 15th round. That's when, and if he's still on the board, that's when I'm taking him as a tight end mandatory league. I'm not, I don't draft tight ends highly anyway, but that's where I would be taking Chig if I was in a tight end mandatory league. And I think you're going to see him way overproduce his value too.
Nice. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us here, giving us all the sights and sounds and insights from being at Nissan Stadium. If you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, follow Zach on Twitter at @TheZachLyons and go listen weekdays 1 to 3 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone to Cover 2 with Blaine and Zach, and also check out Football and Other F Words, part of 104.5 The Zone as well. Zach, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks again to Zach Lyons for all of his insight. Justin, I didn't even mention this at the top of the show at any point in the show yet. I feel stupid for forgetting to bring this up. Treylon Burks has a broken collarbone. I think this was, aside from Cam Ward's awesome day and the connection with Calvin Ridley, this was the story of Saturday. It's an unfortunate one, a really bad break for Treylon Burks, and I mean that literally. He broke his collarbone making a diving one-handed catch out of bounds, unfortunately. You can see that playing right now, and gets up a little slow, immediately heads to the locker room with trainers. Everyone's wondering, how serious is it? A lot of people, including you, tweeted the full Treylon Burks experience. He makes an incredible highlight reel diving catch, but gets hurt in the process. And credit to you, Justin, because they did post. And it doesn't count because it was out of bounds. Credit to you for being the first person to tweet the full Treylon Burks experience. Then everyone else copied you, including our buddy Mike Herndon. But yeah, this is the Treylon Burks experience in one play, and it's really unfortunate for him. I think it could help the Titans in the long run, because now they can stash him on IR if that's what they choose to do. Throw him on IR. He let his rookie contract play out. He hits free agency. If he goes and signs a 1-year, $6 million prove-it deal somewhere, or even less than a 1-year, $2 million deal, whatever deal he goes off and signs next offseason, it will count towards the Titans' comp pick formula. Whereas if they cut him right now, he wouldn't count towards that formula. Not that he's going to count a lot, but it's like one more signing the Titans can make that it offsets and try to still get comp picks. They won't be able to trade him, I'm assuming now, unless he gets healthy and they do it at the deadline, which was probably the hope or the goal. But it also frees up the conversation. Like, as unfortunate as it is for Treylon Burks, and I hate it for him because it feels like every time he started to build momentum, something like this would happen to him throughout his career. At the same time, Justin, this is selfish of me to say, I'm glad we don't have to talk about him anymore. Like, that's how I really feel. I'm kind of over the conversation, and at least now there's like a resolution to what his year looks like.
Yeah, you asked me earlier, are we leaving the Treylon Burks thing for too late? I don't think it is, right? Like, yeah, it's a former first-round pick, so there's always buzz around it, but we didn't think this guy was going to make the team, right? You and I have been in lockstep on that all off-season long. It's just that it's always something always goes wrong for him, right? And it's like, of course you feel bad for him, but it's also not coincidence, right? Like, this has been the Treylon Burks experience the entire time for 4 years. It's been drop passes or injuries, some sort of disappointment one way or another. I never had him on my 53. You don't have him on your 53. No. This is not a season ender, but it is a multi-month injury, right? Like, you're putting him on IR right now. I don't think you're really trying to bring him back during the year.
I agree.
And I'll say this about it, like a mental note I had made in my mind. This happened within a few plays of Bryce Oliver, similar play to a degree where he goes up the sideline and he makes a great leaping catch over a corner. You can argue that Bryce Oliver and Treylon Burks were fighting for the same roster spot. They both play similar positions on the field, right? They're not slot-only guys. They're bigger. They can play outside. Bryce Oliver goes up and makes the play, right?
Yeah.
Treylon Burks goes up, doesn't make the play, and suffers an injury where he's going to be out for 3 to 4 months, right? If I'm counting the timeline correctly on a collarbone. So that's the difference between a Treylon Burks and even a Bryce Oliver. Like, he's not even as good as Bryce Oliver. I know that's, you're not basing that based on these plays, but
right.
I had Bryce Oliver on my 53-man roster, and I didn't have Treylon Burks. Why do I have? Because I think Bryce Oliver is a better football player. It is what it is, right? You got to get rid of the first-round pick. He went to Arkansas, yada, yada. Like, Bryce Oliver is a better professional football player than Treylon Burks is.
Bryce Oliver is also a core special teamer, so his roster spot is secured because of that ability as well. And I think anything Oliver gives you on the field catching passes is a bonus, and I think he can give you a decent amount on the field catching passes. And there was some
Treylon Burks gives you.
Absolutely, but there was some controversy over the catch he made over Darrell Baker. If he got both feet down inbound, some people reported it as a catch. I think Jim Wyatt tracked it as a catch in his observations piece, but some people said that that foot came down out of bounds. But anyway,
the Titans, I'll quickly say, they are obviously putting him on IR, Treylon Burks, because they've already reportedly signed a replacement. It's Ramel Keaton, who they had worked out a couple days ago. The same day they worked out Matt Landers, who they also signed. I guess Ramel Keaton was number 2 on that pecking order because they're going to sign him. He played ball at University of Tennessee, was a 2-year starter, 2022, 2023, put up some decent numbers there. Was in camp with the Raiders last year and actually made their 53-man roster initially as a UDFA receiver. He's big, he's athletic, kind of similar to Matt Landers, where I think there's some untapped potential there. They love speed and size. I mean, you've seen it all offseason. Even Shimere DK, right? Like, there's a type that they like at receiver. They want to try to work with that untapped potential. They'll bring in Ramel Keaton and see if anything's there.
And Brian Callahan commented on the roster churn before the Saturday practice and talked about what kind of guys they're looking for when they make a claim like this. And it's not necessarily guys that they think are going to help them this year, but it's guys with traits that they can possibly develop, stash on the practice squad, and see if they can, eventually down the line have a role for the team. So again, this guy's not going to make the roster, but he might make the practice squad if he impresses them over the next month or so. So that's the deal with that. Justin, I want to talk about Femi Oladejo as well, because we talked about him on the last pod at length, so I don't want to spend too much time here because there's nothing really new to go over except for what Brian Callahan said about Femi before Saturday's practice. I'm going to play that sound right now.
No, Femi looks pretty comfortable. You can see he knows the position, he plays it. The one thing about Femi is he plays very physical and with a lot of enthusiasm. And you can play outside linebacker if he can do those things. The technique is coming along. He's learning every day. He's going against bigger people and all that stuff. But I've been pretty pleased with where Femi's at. Probably a bit ahead of the curve in terms of where I maybe expected him to be and where he is. So that's encouraging.
Femi Oladejo is ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
If he, again, I'll say it for the 12th time, if he can have a big impact this season, it really raises the ceiling of what this Titans defense can be.
Yeah, it just changes the whole dynamic of it, right? We're worried about what they have at edge. If Femi's a bigger contributor than we're expecting, there are a lot of players who fall into this category, in all honesty. Like, I'd put at least 3 of them. I would say Femi Oladejo, James Williams, who, as you heard Zach said, I think we're in agree. All 3 of us, we're projecting him to be linebacker 2. And then I add L'Jarius Sneed to that. It's like interesting, right? You got a rookie, a sophomore, and an established veteran. I put all 3 of them in the same bucket, because you don't really know what you're going to get from the 3 of them this year. And what you get will probably determine the direction of this defense, right? I think you feel good about what you're getting out of a Jeffery Simmons, a Roger McCreary, even a Cody Barton, who's new here. Arden Key, you know who he is. T'Vondre Sweat, you hope for some growth, but you know kind of what he is. Like, those 3 guys, depending on what they get, that's going to change the direction of this defense, either negatively or positively. And it's great to hear that Femi Oladejo is on the right track. And as Callie said, ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. Another guy that could have an impact if he picks things up quickly is Kevin Winston Jr. And the Titans tweeted out this play of him diving in to break up a pass, and just, it's the second straight practice that he's gotten to a receiver right as the ball is arriving and dislodged the ball. Obviously, in Thursday's practice, he ended up taking the ball from Josh Wiley and forcing a turnover, creating a turnover out of it. In this case, he knocks the pass down on, I believe, a 3rd down drill. So another good play here from Kevin Winston Jr. He continues to stack good days and make a case for getting some early playing time as a rookie. You love to see that. Any thoughts on Winston? Because I have one final thing I want to talk about before we get out of here.
No, I mean, you just love to see him stacking days, right? It feels like we're 3 practices in, but he's made at least one impact play at 2 of them. So he's going to keep fighting his way onto the field, I think, with that first team defense.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Justin, because it reminded me to say this again. We heard in the rap sheet quote at the very top of this show that the Titans had a walkthrough on Friday. So we got confirmation. It wasn't a full practice, but they were on the field together. So they practiced on Wednesday, on Thursday, walkthrough Friday, practice Saturday. We're recording this on Sunday. The team is off. They will be back on the field on Tuesday in pads, as you heard Zach hint at when we were talking to him. So very excited for the pads to come on. It's about time, I'll say, because we've been waiting for it since minicamp, honestly, for these pads to come on. The last point I want to make before we say goodbye for this episode is Daniel Jeremiah was out at Titans practice watching. Obviously, Ian Rappaport was out at Titans practice watching. There was a lot of publicity around the Titans for NFL Network's Back Together Saturday event, and every team gets coverage in this event, but it's nice to see the Titans included, and they sent Rap Sheet, like one of their top guys, to Nashville, and DJ to Nashville. I mean, they could have sent them anywhere in the country, and it's like, we haven't talked a lot about the number 1 pick. Let's go check him out. So I like that they did that. And there was a lot of publicity around Cam Ward. He did the NFL Network interview after practice, asking him about what time he comes into the building and the receivers he's bringing in with him. And we get to hear the story again, told about him showing up at the facility at 5 a.m. Cam actually said 5:30. So maybe some exaggeration for the people saying 5 a.m., but whatever. 5:30 in the morning, still freaking early. Bringing Calvin Ridley and the rookie receivers to help teach them the offense. So all that's getting like the publicity that it deserves, that Titans fans have known about since May. But another thing Daniel Jeremiah tweeted after practice was, Jeffery Simmons was dominant. He's in shape and ready to roll. So Jeffery Simmons, who is the one who had the sack on the play that everyone says would have been a sack, except for me holding on to this sliver of hope that Cam Ward could have evaded it because he's good at doing that, had a great day of practice. And he gave a quote afterwards, again, talking about the trash talk between him and Cam Ward, that I think Titans fans will just love to hear if you haven't heard it yet. So I'm going to play what Jeffery Simmons said after practice.
That's what we want. That's what we need from out of Cam. He's going to have to play football for us. And, me and Cam may be talking smack, but guarantee you, I'm going to be the first one to have his back on Sunday. So.
Yeah, phenomenal quote from Jeffery Simmons. I mean, he's shown everything you want to see from him this offseason. He's in phenomenal shape. He's been dominant, as DJ said, at every practice, not just Saturday's Back Together weekend at Nissan Stadium, but he's certainly looking the part, and I think he's due for a huge, huge year. You remember how great he was in 21 and 2022? I think that's the version of Jeffery Simmons we're going to get this year.
And they need it. They don't need it. If they want to be good, which they think they can be good, and we'll see TBD on how good they can be. But Jeffery Simmons thinks they can be good. All right, Justin, I think we've done enough. We've recapped Saturday's Nissan Stadium practice thoroughly here. We're going to be back, I think, maybe on Tuesday to recap the padded practice. That seems like our best bet for a next show. I'm still working on my Calvin Ridley, Cam Ward bromance video. I think that I got a lot of good content for that video on Saturdays at Saturday's practice, like a prophet over here. I start writing the script about how they're connecting through training camp, and then bang, Saturday they go out and have the most connections they've had yet. So I'm excited about that video coming out at some point in the next week or so. But we'll be back on Tuesday to recap that padded practice. And as we close this one out, Justin, I just want to say that it's okay to be excited right now. And I think understanding the realistic expectations for this team are that they probably will not be that good, that the best case hope we can have for them is that they are still in the hunt, 3/4 of the way through the season and maybe competing for a wild card spot or the division, but that's not necessarily, that shouldn't be the expectation, and that all of that can be true, and that this might still be a not very good team, and we don't know if Brian Callahan is even a good head coach. All of those things can be true, and it's still okay to be super excited about Cam Ward and what we've seen at practice, because if you don't get excited right now and the team ends up not being good, then you're going to go the whole football season without ever having any excitement. So forget about what's coming, forget about the season ahead and how good or bad the Titans might be, and just enjoy training camp with a rookie quarterback, because it doesn't come around all that often where you have a guy that you truly feel like is, in the words of the Titans coaches, the truth. So just enjoy this next month or so, and then just, cross your fingers and hope for the best once the season arrives. But don't try to temper your expectations too bad, because this is the time of year to be excited.
Well said. I mean, look, the Titans have a number 1 overall quarterback for the first time in 65 years, dating back to the Houston Oilers 1960. It's never happened before. You should be excited. And then you comb that with what you're hearing from Ian Rappaport, Daniel Jeremiah, about him, what the coaches are saying about him, how electric he was at Saturday's practice in front of 7,500 Titans fans at Nissan Stadium. You should be through the roof excited to watch Cam Ward this season.
Absolutely. So thanks to everyone for tuning into this episode. Again, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below what was your favorite part of Cam Ward's day on Saturday. We want to hear from you guys. And another shout out to the Mettenberger for all the clips that we got to play on this show. Thanks to Sinkers Beverages. Remember to check out the link to Sinkers' 40th birthday jamboree. And one final reminder for our audience out there. Have you gotten Justin's book yet? Titans of the South 2025 re-release, available at titansofthesouth.com. Just $25, includes free shipping and includes a free gift, an illustrated player trading card of the Titans rookie. You don't want to miss this before they sell out, so go titansofthesouth.com, order your book. That's another comment you can leave. If you have yours, let us know down below. All right, we'll be back on Tuesday. Great stuff, Justin. Until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.